Got all the pieces for the inlays cut. I'm going to work on getting them to the right thickness to fit in there. Just slightly oversized. It's just going to take a little bit of sand, and some parts fit already. And some of them are going to have to be tweaked just a little bit. Got the walnut inlay strips glued in place. Trimmed off most of the excess on the bandsaw, and I'm going to clean up the rest of it with a piece of sandpaper and a sanding block. The sanding block method was working to trim down the walnut inlays, but I ran out of elbow grease, so I took the pieces over to the disc sander and trimmed the ends down as far as I could get them without hitting the feet, and then finished them off with the sanding block. And I trimmed the top pieces on the table saw and did the same thing, just finished off the last tiny bit with the sanding block, and that worked out fine. Now I've got to get set up to do mortises. Determine which way I want these turned. I guess it matters. Each end's going to look a little different no matter how I turn them, so it's just the way they'll be. So my plan is to get the legs, or get the feet centered, get the legs centered on the foot pieces, and mark them out so I can locate the exact position for the mortises. So I got the mortises cut in the bottom of all the legs. Now I'm getting ready to lay out the mortises for my foot pieces. I've got the position of the legs marked on here, and I'm going to mark each mortise individually just to make sure I get perfect alignment. So all I'm doing is setting the feet up here. I'm going to line up the legs with the marks and mark the position of the mortises. The end point is not super critical on each one. If it has to be a little bit wider, then that's not a problem, but they need to align in this direction as close to perfect as possible. Got the saw set up to make tenon cuts on this piece. This is the support piece that's going between the two foot pieces. The plan is to cut part of the tenon on the RAS, and then I'm going to take the piece over to the table saw and finish out the cuts, because I don't want to do so much back and forth cutting with this saw. I want smooth. This is going to be a through tenon on each end, and I want the cuts to be smooth. I don't want a bunch of saw marks in there, but I can only cut up so close with the table saw running the board into the blade, because of the curvature of the blade. I can't get all the way to the line, so I figure if I started off over here and cut out maybe a half an inch or so all the way around, then I should be able to clean it up on the table saw and make it look good. I'm only taking 1/8 of an inch depth cut all the way around because I want the tenon that's sticking out to be as thick as possible. My intention is to drill a hole and put a wedge down through the part of the tenon that's coming through the foot piece. It's mainly going to be decorative because I'm going to glue it all together, so I'm not going to be relying on the wedge to hold it, but I still want tenons to be as thick as possible. So this setup should get me both ends on the large portion, and then I'll have to raise the blade for the other cut. Okay, plan is to drill out the mortises and the foot pieces with a Forstner bit, and then I'll come back and clean up the edges with a chisel. I'm going to have to drill this from both sides. I don't want to deal with massive tear out, but also the drill press doesn't have enough travel to go all the way through the board in one shot, so drilling it from both sides is probably the best option. All right, now the work begins. This is going to take some time. Well, my mallet's working well. My $10 Harbor Freight chisel set's working well. Got a good start here. This is actually the outside. The tenon's going to come through the other way. Still got a long way to go, but this is going to work out. And I believe it's going to look pretty good. Okay. Getting closer. Both of the through tenons are cut on the foot pieces. I've still got to do the mortises for the wedges that are going through. Each end is going to be wedged. Other than that, the stand is pretty much done and ready to glue up. Now I've got to cut tapered mortises The holes are going to be 3" square. 3". The holes are going to be 3/8 square on the bottom, and they're going to be 5/8 by 3/8 on the top. So I've got my mark there. I'm using the same 10-degree angle that I used on the rest of the stand to keep things consistent. This is going to be a little bit of a challenge, making that mortise angled, but I think it's doable. Once I get the mortises cut, then I will cut wedges to match. I've got the tapered mortises cut in the center support on each end. So now I'm going to cut a small section of this walnut and make my wedges out of it. I marked off one wedge. I'm going to cut the angled part just outside the line and then sand down to the line, and then I think I'm going to cut the straight part on the RAS so it'll be good and smooth. I'm leaving it long so I don't have to get my hand so close to the blade. And when I get this one done, I'll mark out and cut the other one the same way. I always wonder why the light on bandsaw is on the outfeed side, because no matter how I position the thing, I've still got shadows over on the infeed side where I actually need the light. Well, a little bit of tweaking on the mortises, a little bit of tweaking on the wedges. I got them fitting, looking pretty good. Now all that's left is sanding on the lower half of the stand, and then I've got to do some work on the top. But it's coming along.